Hey guys, tonight we're going to be talking about the most essential, most life-giving, and, for most of human history, one of the most terrifyingly dangerous substances on Earth, water. We live in a miraculous age, a time when you can turn a small handle in your home and a stream of clean, safe, and seemingly infinite water appears, as if by magic. It is the most fundamental and most overlooked luxury of our modern world. But for almost all of human history, humanity's relationship with water was a story of backbreaking labor, of constant, low-level fear, and of sudden, catastrophic death. Tonight's journey is about that older, more dangerous world. A world where a glass of water could kill you, where a lack of rain could destroy a civilization, and where the open sea was a terrifying, monster-filled void. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have survived it. Forget the great battles or the epic plagues. You likely would have been defeated on day one by a simple drink of water from the local well. A drink teeming with a vibrant and enthusiastic population of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery bacteria. Filtered was not a common feature of the ancient water supply. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet and simple way to support the channel. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where and when you're tuning in from. Go ahead and drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always a little fascinating to see our community of history lovers spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is made of mud and of sun. You are a farmer in the great and ancient kingdom of Egypt. During the prosperous time of the New Kingdom, the year is around 1300 BC. Your life, your world, your religion, your very sense of time itself, is governed by a single, all-powerful, and deeply fickle deity. And that deity is the river, the Great Nile. You live in a small village of sun-baked mud brick houses, a stone's throw from the river's edge. Your life is one of hard, physical labor, but it is a good life, a life of profound and predictable rhythm. And that rhythm is dictated entirely by the river's three great seasons. You have just survived Shemu, the season of the harvest. It is the hottest and driest time of the year. The sun is a merciless, white-hot disk in a pale, cloudless sky. The great fertile fields where you grew your barley and your flax are now dry, cracked and fallow. The land looks dead. The great Nile itself has shrunk, retreating into its central channel, leaving behind wide, stinking banks of drying mud. The world is thirsty, and so you enter the season of anxiety, the season of waiting. You and every other person in your village, from the humblest farmer to the most powerful priest, turns your gaze south, upriver, and you wait. You wait for the flood, the annual inundation. The great flooding of the Nile is the source of all life in your world. It is not just water, it is a gift from the god Hapi, a great, slow-moving tide of brown, life-giving water, saturated with the rich, black, and incredibly fertile silt from the highlands of Ethiopia. This silt is what makes your land the most fertile place on earth. Without the flood, there is no silt. Without the silt, there is no harvest. Without the harvest, there is only famine and death. Your entire civilization is built on this single, precarious, and recurring miracle. And your entire sense of security is tied to the hope that the miracle will happen again this year. You watch the sky, you watch the river, you make offerings at the small local temple. You pray for a good Nile. The anxiety in your village is a palpable thing. The old men sit in the shade, telling stories of the bad years. They tell of the years of the low Nile, when the flood was weak, when the water did not rise high enough to cover all the fields, leading to a meager harvest and a hungry winter. and they tell the even more terrifying stories of the High Nile. When the flood was too powerful, a raging, destructive torrent that washed away entire villages, that destroyed the carefully constructed irrigation canals and the dikes. A disaster of too much of a good thing. Your entire civilization is a gamble on the mood of the river. A few cubits of water, one way or the other. Is the difference between prosperity and annihilation? You hear the news from the south. A rumor that passes from boatman to boatman as they make their way down the shrunken river. The priests, far to the south, at the great temples near the first cataract, are watching the Nilometers. These are the sacred, scientific instruments of your age. Great. Submerged staircases or stone pillars with markings that measure the height of the rising water. The priests watch the water level, and their readings are sent by swift messenger to the pharaoh himself. The height of the flood will determine the expected size of the harvest, and the size of the harvest will determine the level of the taxes you will have to pay. Future historians and climatologists will debate the great cycles of your river. They will study the sediment cores from the Nile Delta, and they will try to link the rise and fall of the great Egyptian dynasties to the periods of high and low floods. Was the collapse of the great Old Kingdom, the age of the pyramid builders, a political event, or was it caused by a century-long period of drought and low Niles? A climate catastrophe that led to a great famine and the breakdown of central authority. You do not know these grand theories, and you only know the deep, primal fear in your own gut as you stare at the low, sluggish river and you pray for it to rise. And then one day, the first sign comes. The wind shifts. It begins to blow steadily from the north. And on that wind, you can smell something new. The faint, clean, and almost green scent of distant water. A few days later, you see it. The first of the floodwaters. It is not a great wave. It is a slow, creeping advance of a new kind of water. It is a deep, rich, reddish-brown color. The color of life. The color of the precious silt. A great collective sigh of relief goes through your village. The god Hapi has been kind. The inundation, the season you call Akhet, has begun over the next few weeks. The river rises, slowly, steadily, and beautifully. It swells beyond its banks. It creeps across your dry, cracked fields. It fills the irrigation canals you have spent the last month painstakingly cleaning and repairing. The world is transformed. Your village, which is built on a small, natural rise, becomes an island. The entire Nile Valley becomes a vast, shallow, and placid lake, dotted with the small island villages of your people. For the next 3 months, you live a different kind of life. There is no farm work to be done. The land is resting, drinking, being renewed. You spend your days fishing in the shallow waters that cover your fields. You repair your tools. You visit your neighbors. Not by walking down a dusty path, but by poling a small skiff made of reeds. It is a time of waiting, but it is a good and a hopeful waiting. It makes visiting your neighbors a bit of a challenge, but it is wonderful for your fishing skills. You watch the water level with a careful, anxious eye. This year, the priests have sent word. It is a good Nile. The water will rise to the perfect height. Not too low, not too high. It will cover all the fields, but it will not threaten your homes. You stand on the edge of your small island village, looking out at the vast, brown, and life-giving sea that was once your fields. You are a farmer whose fields are at the bottom of a lake, and you are a man filled with a profound and quiet sense of gratitude. You have survived another year of the great, dangerous, and beautiful gamble. Your relationship with water is not one of simple convenience. It is a deep, complex, and intimate partnership with a power that can be both a loving and a terrible god. You have survived its anger, and you are about to be blessed by its grace. You know that when the waters recede, they will leave behind a fresh, fertile, and perfect blanket of black earth. And you know that the harvest and your life will continue. You leave the sun-baked, fertile and precarious world of ancient Egypt, a civilization built on the rhythms of a single, life-giving, and often destructive river. Your journey now takes you forward in time to a different empire, a different city, and a different, more intimate, and more disgusting relationship with water. You are no longer a farmer, a servant of a great natural river. You are a worker, a master of a man-made one. The year's 80 AD. You are in Rome, the magnificent, marble-clad, and unimaginably crowded capital of the world. And your world is not a world of sun and of light. Your world is one of absolute darkness, of dripping stone, of a profound, echoing silence, and of the single, most overpowering and foul stench that a human being can possibly conceive of. You are a curator cloacrum, a sewer worker, a tender of the great, dark, and subterranean river of filth that is the secret heart of Rome. Your life is a strange one. By day, you are an ordinary man, living in a small, cramped apartment in a teeming insula in one of the city's poorer quarters. But when your work shift begins, you descend into a world that the respectable citizens of Rome know exists, but which they pretend does not. Your work begins at a heavy stone manhole cover in the middle of a busy street, with two of your fellow workers. You heave the great stone aside, a blast of foul, warm, and nauseating air rushes up from the depths, a breath from the city's own bowels. The citizens passing by hurry away, holding their perfumed handkerchiefs to their noses, their faces masks of disgust. For them, this is a momentary inconvenience. For you, it is the smell of your office. You light your small, flickering oil lamps, and one by one, you descend a series of rusted iron rungs. Down into the darkness, you have entered the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome. It is one of the engineering marvels of your civilization, an ancient and enduring system of tunnels, some of them so large a cart could be driven through them. It is the city's digestive tract, its great, secret shame, the thing that allows the million people who live in the city above to live in a state of relative and, historically, unprecedented cleanliness. It is the greatest sewer in the world, and it is your job to keep it from choking on its own filth. You step off the ladder into the slow-moving, ankle-deep current. The water is not water. It is a thick, warm, and grayish-brown sludge. A soup of unimaginable ingredients. It is the collected human waste from the city's public latrines and the villas of the wealthy. It is the blood and the guts from the city's slaughterhouses. It is the discarded, rotting vegetables from the great markets. It is the runoff from the streets, with all its animal dung and its refuse. And it is the final resting place of anything and anyone that the city wishes to forget. Your job today is a simple one. The flow of the water in this section is sluggish. There is a blockage somewhere downstream. You and your team must walk through this river of filth and find the blockage and clear it. You begin your slow, shuffling march through the darkness. The only light is the small, brave, and entirely inadequate glow of your oil lamps, which cast long, dancing, and monstrous shadows on the curved stone walls of the tunnel. The silence is profound, a great, echoing quiet that is a world away from the constant, roaring noise of the city above. The only sounds are the soft, viscous splash of your own footsteps in the sludge, and the constant, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water seeping through the stones from the world above. The work is incredibly dangerous. You are constantly aware of the risk of a sudden flash flood. A heavy summer rainstorm in the city above can send a great, roaring wall of water through these tunnels with no warning. A force that would sweep you away and drown you in a torrent of filth. You are also aware of the bad air, the pockets of what you call mephitic vapors, what future ages will call methane gas, that can accumulate in side tunnels. This air, can knock a man unconscious, or if it comes into contact with the open flame of your lamp, can explode with a devastating force. But the greatest, most constant danger is the water itself. You're wading through a concentrated solution of every disease and every parasite that is present in the grate. Unhealthy city of Rome, every cut on your foot, every splash of water in your eye or your mouth is a potential death sentence. You do not have a germ theory, but you have a practical. Workers' knowledge that the men in your profession do not tend to live to a ripe old age. You and your team move deeper into the subterranean labyrinth. The work is a strange mixture of the mundane and the surreal. You are, in essence, a plumber, a maintenance worker, but you are a plumber who works in a mythological underworld. You are a janitor in the bowels of a god, sometimes in the sludge. You find things. You find the lost and discarded treasures of the city above. You find a single, elegant, golden earring, dropped by a wealthy woman into a drain. You find a handful of coins, fumbled by a drunken merchant. You find a beautifully crafted but broken dagger, likely thrown into the sewer after a back alley brawl. The sewer is a great, secret, and disgusting museum of the city's hidden life. Your master, the chief engineer of the sewers, has told you stories of the old days, when they would sometimes have to send a boat, or even a small barge, into the main tunnels to clear them. And you know that your work is, in its own strange way, a sacred duty. The Romans have a goddess for everything, and they have a goddess for this place. You are working in the temple of the goddess Cloacina, the purifier, the divine guardian of the great sewer. It is a comforting thought, though it does little to improve the smell. This is the great, complex debate that future historians of public health will have. Was the Roman sewer system, this magnificent feat of engineering, a true triumph of sanitation that made the city a healthier place to live, or was its primary function simply cosmetic? Did it just move the unsightly and foul-smelling filth out of the city center and dump it, untreated, directly into the river Tiber, thereby catastrophically polluting the river that many of the city's poorer inhabitants still relied on for their drinking water? Was it a solution to the city's health problems, or just a very efficient system for moving the problem downstream? You, wading through the problem itself, have a fairly clear idea of the answer. After an hour of walking, you find the blockage. It is a great, tangled mass of debris, a dam of filth that has built up around one of the great stone pillars that supports the roof of the tunnel. It is a horrifying and almost artistic collage of the city's refuse. You see the carcasses of several dogs, a broken cartwheel, 100 shattered wine amphorae, and a great tangled mass of rotting cloth and human waste. Your work begins with long iron hooks and with your bare hands. You begin to pull the blockage apart. It is disgusting, strenuous, and deeply unpleasant work. You are a servant of the city's hygiene, and your work is the filthiest job in the world. After another hour of this grim labor, the dam is broken. The water begins to flow more freely. The job is done. You and your team make your way back to the surface. You emerge, blinking, from the manhole into the bright, late afternoon sun of Rome. You are covered, from your waist down, in a thick, indescribable, and profoundly foul-smelling layer of filth. The citizens of Rome, the beautiful, clean people in their white togas, hurry past you, their faces a mask of disgust. They do not want to see you. They do not want to smell you. They want to pretend that you, and the dark, stinking world you inhabit, do not exist. You go to the public baths to wash, but you know that you will never truly feel clean. The smell of the sewer is a part of you now. It is in your skin, in your hair, in your very soul. You look back at the great, gleaming, marble-clad city of Rome. It is a city of gods and of emperors, of poets and of philosophers. It is the most magnificent city in the world. And you know its great secret. You know that its magnificent, shining, and beautiful surface is only made possible by the dark, foul, and terrifying river of filth that flows, silent and unseen, beneath its feet, and that it is you and men like you who are the silent, unseen, and forgotten guardians of that dark and necessary river. You leave the dark, man-made, and claustrophobic world of the Roman sewers, a place where water is a servant to carry away filth. Your journey now takes you forward in time, into a world that is wild and cold and wide open, a world where water is not a servant, but a great and terrible master. The year's around 900 AD. You are not a city worker. You are a Norseman, a Viking. Your world is not a world of stone and of empire. It is a world of long, dark fjords, of wind-swept coasts, and of the gray, churning, and profoundly dangerous waters of the North Sea. You are a sailor, and your life is a constant, intimate, and often deadly conversation with the water. Your vessel is a masterpiece of your people's ingenuity, a creature of the sea. It is a long ship. It is long. It is narrow. It is beautiful. It's high. Curving prow carved into the fearsome shape of a dragon's head. It is a ship designed for speed, for raiding, for navigating both the open ocean and the shallowest of rivers. It is a technological marvel, but it is also, you are keenly aware, a very small and very fragile wooden shell in a very large and very angry ocean. This is the most crucial fact of your life at sea. Your ship is an open boat. There are no cabins below deck to shelter in. There is no roof over your head. You and your 30 fellow crewmen live, eat, and sleep on the open deck, completely exposed to the wind, the rain, the snow, and the great crashing waves of the North Sea. Your journey is a long one. You have set out from your home in Norway on a voyage to the new colonies in Iceland, a journey of many weeks across the open, and mostly empty. Ocean. Life on the ship is one of constant, shared labor and of profound, communal misery. When the single great, square sail of your ship catches the wind, you move with a thrilling speed. But when the wind dies, your life becomes the hard, rhythmic, and back-breaking work of rowing. Your oar a heavy, unforgiving weight in your hands, and the cold is a constant, living presence. It is a physical enemy. The spray from the waves is a constant, chilling mist that soaks your heavy wool and leather clothing. The wind cuts through your wet clothes, seeping into your very bones. You huddle together for warmth at night under skins and furs. Your body's a single, shivering mass, but you are never truly warm. Hypothermia, a word you do not know, is the silent, unnamed killer that stalks every moment of your voyage. Your provisions are simple and monotonous barrels of dried fish, of hard, flat bread, and, most importantly, of soured milk and weak ale. For you know that the fresh water you carry in your skin bags will not last the whole journey, and you must navigate in your time. The magnetic compass is a thing that does not yet exist in your world. Your navigation is an art of observation and of instinct. On a clear day, you steer by the sun. On a clear night, you steer by the North Star. But in the North Sea, the days and the nights are often not clear. They are a gray, featureless, and disorienting haze of fog and of cloud, and so you rely on more ancient, more subtle methods. You watch the flight of the seabirds. You know that a gannet will fly far out to sea, but that a shag will stay close to the land. You look at the color of the water, at the patterns of the swell, and you rely on the almost mystical sense of your ship's captain, an old and experienced sailor who seems to possess an inner compass, a Hafsen sea, a deep, intuitive understanding of the sea's hidden currents and moods. You have also heard the stories of a new and magical tool, the solar stain, the sunstone, a piece of crystal that can find the sun's position even on a completely overcast day. Your captain, you hope, has one. The great debate among future historians will be about the nature of you and your people. Were you the fearless, almost reckless, masters of the sea that your own sagas will later portray you as? Laughing in the face of death? Your poems filled with a love for the wildness of the ocean? Or were you, in reality, practical, cautious sailors who were, in fact, terrified of this vast, empty, and monstrously powerful body of water, and who only ventured across it out of a grim necessity for new land, for new wealth, for sheer survival? You, huddling in your wet cloak, your hands numb with cold, a knot of fear in your own stomach. Know the answer. The sagas are a good story, but the fear is real, the true, and most terrible. Danger of the sea is not the cold or the getting lost, it is the storm. It comes upon you with a shocking speed. The gray, placid sea of the morning is, by the afternoon, a churning, chaotic landscape of monstrous, moving mountains. The sky turns a dark, bruised, purple-black. The wind is no longer a force that pushes your sail, it is a screaming, physical wall that threatens to tear your mast from its socket. The great sail is hastily reefed, and now, your ship is a small, helpless cork, tossed about on a sea that is actively trying to murder you. Your life becomes a simple, brutal, and focused battle for survival. The waves are no longer just waves. They are great, crashing walls of green and white water that break over the side of your small, open boat, filling it with a ton of freezing, life-sapping water, and so you bail. You and every man on that ship who is not at the steering oar has a single job. You grab a wooden bucket, a helmet, anything that can hold water, and you begin the frantic, desperate, and seemingly hopeless task of throwing the ocean back into the ocean. It is a race between your own exhaustion and the sea's infinite supply of water. You are deafened by the roar of the wind and the crashing of the waves. You are blinded by the salt spray. Your muscles scream with the effort. You see your shipmates' faces, and they are masks of a grim, focused terror. Your longship is a marvel of flexibility. You can feel the wooden hull twisting and groaning beneath your feet as it rides the waves, the ship bending like a living creature, absorbing the punishment of the sea. But you know that there is a limit, a single, great rogue wave, a single moment of inattention at the steering oar, and your ship will be broken in two, or swamped and turned over, and you will all be lost, your bodies swallowed by the cold. Gray, an utterly indifferent sea, the storm rages for 2 days. It is a timeless, eternal state of being. There is no day or night, there is only the wind, and the water, and the bailing. And then, as suddenly as it arrived, it passes, the wind drops, the great waves subside. You are left in a world that is eerily calm, your ship rocking gently on a grate. Gray. Rolling swell. You have survived. You are all exhausted, your bodies bruised, your hands raw. You have lost 2 of your shipmates, washed overboard during the worst of the storm. Their screams swallowed by the roar of the wind. Your ship is damaged. One of your oars is broken, but it is still afloat. You huddle together, and you share a ration of the now precious ale, and you look out at the sea. It is calm now, almost peaceful, but you do not see it as a beautiful thing. You have just looked into the face of your God, and it is a face of pure, chaotic, and murderous power. A few days later, you see it, a small, dark line on the horizon, the coast of Iceland. You have made it. You have crossed the great, terrible ocean. You have fought the storm, and you have won. You stand at the prow of your ship as you approach the new land. The solid, beautiful, and unmoving land. And you look back at the gray, cold, and empty sea that you have just conquered. And you know that your people's relationship with water is not one of love. It is one of a deep and abiding and entirely sensible. terror? It is your highway. It is your source of wealth. It is your path to glory. But it is also a monster that is always trying to kill you. Your journey through the world's dangerous waters now takes you from the wild, open, and chaotic sea of the Vikings to a place that is, in its own way, even more terrifying. It is a world that is quiet, that is flat, and that is in a constant, silent, and unending war with the water. You are no longer a raider who travels upon the sea. You are a farmer who lives below it. The year is around 1400 AD. You are in the Low Countries, the flat, wet, and perpetually windswept coastal region of Holland. And your world is a triumph of human ingenuity and of a profound, generational stubbornness. The very ground beneath your feet, the rich, dark, fertile soil of your farm, should not exist. It is a polder, a piece of land that has been painstakingly, heroically, and precariously reclaimed from the sea. Your life is governed not by a king or an emperor, but by the great, green, and gently sloping earthen wall that stands at the edge of your world. The dike. It is the most important thing in your life. It is your protector, your fortress, and your constant, demanding master. You live in a state of profound and paradoxical reality. You are a farmer, but you are also a sailor on a ship that is made of land. The sea is always there. On the other side of that earthen wall, a vast, gray, and patient enemy, waiting for a moment of weakness, for a single, tiny flaw in your defenses, to reclaim the land it believes is rightfully its. Your days are a cycle of farming and of fighting. You tend to your crops. You milk your cows. But your life is also punctuated by your duty to the local water shop. The water board. This is one of the oldest and most fundamental forms of democratic self-governance in Europe. A council of your fellow farmers, and it has one single, all-consuming purpose to maintain the dikes and to manage the water. Your duty is the dike wacht. The dike watch. Several times a year. You must spend a week walking your assigned section of the Great Dike. Your eyes trained on the earth beneath your feet. You are looking for trouble. You are looking for the small, trickling seepage that could signal a weakness deep within the dike's core. You are looking for the burrows of muskrats and other animals, small tunnels that can become great, catastrophic breaches in a storm. And you are always listening. You're listening to the sound of the wind, and you are listening to the sound of the sea. A constant, low murmur on the other side of your wall. Your other great ally in this endless war is the windmill. The great, iconic windmills of your country are not for grinding grain. They are engines, they are pumps. They are the tireless, wind-powered hearts that keep your world from drowning. You watch their grate. Cloth-covered sails turn slowly in the constant wind, and you know that with every turn. They are lifting the water that has seeped into your low-lying fields, up into the high-level canals, and from there, back out into the sea where it belongs. Your most important neighbor is not the farmer in the next field. It is the windmill that keeps your feet dry. This is the great, complex, and deeply debated story of your people. Did this unique, constant, and shared struggle against the sea forge a new kind of society? Did the absolute necessity of working together to maintain the dikes, regardless of class or of family, create the deep-rooted Dutch culture of cooperation, of communal governance, of a pragmatic, engineering-based approach to solving problems? You do not think in these grand historical terms. You only know that if your neighbor fails to maintain his section of the dike, your own fields and your own family will be drowned. Your survival is bound to his. It is a simple and powerful hydro-social contract. The true terror of your world is not a sudden battle. It is the storm surge. It is the moment when a great wind-driven storm from the North Sea coincides with a high tide. This is the moment when your patient, gray enemy becomes a roaring, monstrous beast. You have grown up with the stories of the great floods, the water Snowdrampen, the stories of the St. Lucia's flood, 100 years before your time. A single storm that broke the dikes and drowned 50,000 people, washing entire villages from the face of the earth. These are the cautionary tales, the ghost stories, that are told around the fire on a winter's night. And one autumn, you live through your own. It begins with the wind, a strong, steady gale from the northwest that blows for days. And then the church bells begin to ring, not for prayers, but with the frantic, clanging peal of the flood alarm. The dike wacht has been called. It is your turn. You and the other men of your village gather at the foot of the dike. The wind is a physical force now, so strong you have to lean into it to stand. The sky is a low, dark, bruised-looking ceiling of gray cloud, and you can hear it. The sound of the sea. It is no longer a gentle murmur. It is a deep, angry, and constant roar. You take up your post on the top of the great, grassy wall, and you look out at the North Sea. It is a landscape from a nightmare. The water is a chaotic, churning mass of gray and white. The waves are the size of small hills, and they are not just breaking on the shore. They are breaking against the very face of the dike you are standing on. With every wave, you can feel a deep, shuddering vibration through the soles of your boots. A tremor that feels like the heartbeat of a great, angry beast. Your job is a simple one. You must walk your section of the dike, your lantern in your hand, and you must watch. You are looking for the first sign of a breach. The hours pass. The rain begins. A driving, horizontal sheet of water that soaks you to the skin in minutes. The wind screams, the sea roars, and you walk. And then you see it. A dark patch on the inner slope of the dike. A place where the grass is wet. You touch it. The earth is soft, mushy. Water? Seawater. It is being forced by the immense pressure of the storm surge through a weak point deep inside the dike. It is a small leak now, but you know that a small leak can become a catastrophic breach in a matter of hours. You raise your horn and you blow the signal, the alarm, and the entire village responds. The men, the women, even the older children. They are not fighting an army. They are fighting a leak. They come with carts, with wheelbarrows, filled with the special, heavy clay that is stockpiled in the village for just this purpose. They come with shovels, and they begin to work, in the teeth of the gale, by the flickering light of a few storm lanterns. It is a frantic, desperate battle. You and the others dig out the weak, sandy soil from the inner face of the dike, and you pack the hole with the dense, heavy clay, stamping it down, creating a new, stronger core. It is a race against the immense, patient, and relentless pressure of the ocean. You work all night, your body aching, your clothes soaked, the wind and the rain a constant. Punishing assault? You are no longer just a farmer. You are a soldier in a great, desperate, and very wet war. As the dawn breaks, the storm begins to subside. The wind lessens its scream. The tide begins to turn. The great pressure of the storm surge recedes. You have won. The dike has held. You stand on the top of the wall. Your body a single. Great ache. And you look out at the world you have just saved. On one side, the sea. Gray and calm now, but still a thing of immense and terrible power. And on the other side, your home. The flat, green, and impossibly precious fields of your beholder. The small, quiet village. The slow-turning arms of the windmill. A world that exists only because of the wall you are standing on. A wall of simple earth, held together by the courage, the labor, and the sheer, stubborn will of your people. You understand, in that moment, that your life is not a journey, it is a vigil. Your war with the water will never be truly won. It is a war that must be fought and refought every day, every year, for all the generations to come. God may have created the world, You think to yourself, but the Dutch have created the Netherlands, and it is a full-time and very stressful job to keep it from being washed away. You leave the flat, green, and perpetually damp world of the Netherlands, a land created in a constant, defiant struggle against the sea. Your journey now takes you forward in time to a place where the problem is not an excess of water, but a terrifying, soul-crushing lack of it. You are no longer a farmer, defending your home from the water. You are a sailor. Your life now utterly, completely dependent on the small, finite amount of fresh water you carry with you. The year is 1700. Your world is a British merchant ship, a small, sturdy vessel on a long, long journey across the vast, empty expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Your world smells of hot tar, of salty, sun-baked wood, and of the foul, stagnant air of the bilge. It is a world of hard work, of rough company, and of a profound and constant thirst. Your story begins in a state of unnatural and deeply unsettling calm. Your ship has entered the doldrums, the great windless belt of ocean near the equator. For weeks, you have been becalmed, your ship a tiny, painted speck on a vast, glassy, and motionless sea. The sun is a merciless, white-hot enemy, beating down from a cloudless, brassy sky. The sails hang limp and useless. The ship bobs gently on the oily swell, going nowhere. The boredom of being becalmed is a kind of madness, but the true and growing terror on your ship is not the lack of wind. It is the lack of water. The captain, a grim-faced man with a healthy respect for the mathematics of survival, has put the entire crew on a strict water ration. Each day, at noon, you all line up, your tin cups in your hands, as the ship's cooper carefully, almost ceremoniously, doles out your allotment. It is 1 pint of water per man. Per day. It is enough to keep you alive. It is not enough to keep you from being constantly, agonizingly thirsty. The water itself is a new kind of misery, and you remember. Months ago, when you left port, the water was a beautiful, clear, and sweet-tasting thing. But the water on an 18th century sailing ship is not stored in clean, sterile tanks. It is stored in great, heavy, wooden casks, and over the long months in the hot, dark, and airless hold of the ship, the water has gone foul. When the cooper opens a new cask, a foul, swampy smell escapes. The water he ladles into your cup is not clear. It is a murky, greenish-brown color with small, slimy, stringy things floating in it. It tastes of rotten wood, of algae, of a deep and ancient staleness. You must hold your nose to drink it, to force the tepid, foul liquid down your parched throat. Sometimes, you strain it through a piece of your own shirt, to filter out the larger, more disgusting bits of slime. This foul, living liquid is the most precious substance in your world. You are surrounded by millions upon millions of gallons of water. A great, blue, endless expanse of it in every direction. And you are slowly, inexorably, dying of thirst. The irony is so profound, so immense, that it has ceased to be funny. The days in the doldrums bleed into one another. A long, hot, and monotonous nightmare. Your world shrinks to the burning deck of the ship. Your body begins to fail. Your lips become cracked and chapped. Your tongue feels thick and swollen in your mouth. You have a constant, dull, throbbing headache. Your mind becomes sluggish, your thoughts clouded by the haze of dehydration. You dream of water. You dream of cool, clear streams, of the taste of fresh rain, of the simple, unimaginable luxury of a deep and satisfying drink. You wake from these dreams with your mouth as dry as dust. The reality of your situation a new and daily kind of grief. The captain and the ship's officers, men who have a small, private stock of their own, cleaner water and wine, Try to maintain the discipline of the ship. But it becomes impossible. The men are too weak, too listless, to perform their usual duties of mending the sails and tarring the rigging. The ship itself seems to be succumbing to the same. Thirsty lethargy? The cook, a grim and resourceful man, does what he can. He knows that the endless diet of incredibly salty beef and pork is making the crew's thirst even worse. He begins to boil the meat in seawater in a desperate attempt to use the salt of the ocean to draw out the salt of the brine. The result is a meat that is still tough, still stringy, and now tastes faintly of fish. You think with a strange academic detachment of the science of your problem. You have heard learned men in the ports of London discuss the new theories. You hear the captain and the ship's carpenter talking about it one evening. Is it possible, they wonder? To make fresh water from the sea, could a man boil the seawater and capture the steam, the sweet water that rises from it, and turn that back into a drinkable liquid? This is the basic principle of distillation, a process that has been known to the alchemists for centuries, but to build a still on a wooden ship, to use that much of your precious rationed firewood to produce only a tiny amount of fresh water, it is not yet a practical solution. The history of desalination is a long and frustrating story of tantalizing near misses and failed experiments. You are living in an age where the problem is understood, but the technology to solve it does not yet exist as the desperation deepens. The social fabric of the ship begins to fray. The camaraderie of the crew is replaced by a new, suspicious, and watchful silence. Every man is jealously guarding his own small ration of the foul water. And then, the inevitable happens. A man is caught in the middle of the night, trying to steal a drink from the main water cask. The scuttlebutt. On the deck. He is caught by the first mate. The punishment is swift and brutal. The entire crew is summoned to the deck the next morning. The man is tied to the rigging, and the captain orders him to be flogged. You watch, your own throat dry with a mixture of pity and fear. As the man is whipped, the flogging is a grim and necessary piece of theater. It is a reminder that the laws of the ship, the discipline that keeps you all alive, must be maintained, even in the face of death. The greatest threat to your survival is not the thirst itself. It is the chaos that the thirst can unleash. The days continue to pass. The sun continues to burn, and the water casks in the hold are almost empty. The cooper, his face a grim mask, makes his report to the captain. There is one cask left. It is the last one. It holds enough water, on your current ration, to last the crew for perhaps 3 more days. After that, there is nothing. A new and final kind of quiet settles over the ship. It is the quiet of resignation. The men no longer complain. They no longer tell stories. They simply sit, and they wait. You are a crew of condemned men. Your execution scheduled for 3 days from now. The captain, a pious man, orders a prayer service to be held on the deck, a final, desperate appeal to God to send rain. You kneel on the hot, sticky planks of the deck, and you pray. You pray for a cloud. You pray for a single, small, life-giving drop of water the next day, as the cooper is preparing to broach the very last cask of water. A shout comes from the lookout. A man perched high on the masthead. His voice is a dry, cracked, and almost disbelieving croak. A bird, he shouts. A bird! You all look up, and you see it. It is a small, green bird, a land bird circling the mast. It is a creature that cannot live on the open ocean. It is a creature that must have come from the land. Then you see a new energy, a frantic, desperate hope. Surges through the ship. The men rush to the rails, their eyes scanning the horizon, and then the lookout cries out again, his voice now a full-throated, weeping scream of joy. Land, land, ho! You look out. In the direction he is pointing, and you see it. It is not a cloud. It is not a mirage born of your own thirst-crazed mind. It is a faint, dark, and beautiful line on the horizon. It is a line of green. It is an island. You have been saved. Your terrible, silent, and thirsty journey is over. The hope of survival has arrived at the very last, most desperate and most dramatically appropriate moment. You look at the island, and you do not see a place of strange dangers or of unknown peoples. You see only one thing. You see water. You see streams. You see rivers. You see fruit. You see life. The race against the thirst is over, and you have, by the slimmest of margins, one, you leave the vast, silent, and empty world of the becalmed ocean. A world where the great and terrible danger of water was its absence. Your journey now takes you to a place where the opposite is true. You are in a world that is teeming, that is overflowing, that is choking on its own water. You are in the heart of the greatest and most prosperous city on earth. 18th century London. The year is around 1750. You are not a sailor on a long voyage of discovery. You are a waterman. And your ocean is not the Pacific, but the great, brown, and profoundly filthy river that is the heart, the highway, and the sewer of your city, the River Thames. Your world is one of constant, bustling, and often treacherous motion. Your ship is a small, light, and elegant oared boat called a wherry, and you are, in essence, a taxi driver in a city that is still largely without bridges and whose streets are a choked, muddy, and often impassable mess. The Thames is the city's true main street, and you, with your strong back and your waterman's license, are one of the thousands of men who make your living on its tides. Your life is a constant, intimate relationship with this great and terrible river. You know its moods, its currents, its tides. You know the treacherous sandbanks and the safe channels. But you also know its other, more modern and more dangerous, nature. The River Thames of your time is a thing of magnificent contradiction. It is the artery of a global empire. You spend your days rowing in the shadow of great, ocean-going merchant ships from the West Indies, their holds filled with sugar and rum. You see the barges, piled high with the coal from Newcastle that fuels the city's fires. You see the fishing boats, bringing in their daily catch. It is a river of immense wealth and of vibrant, chaotic commerce. But it is also an open sewer. This is the great, brute, historical fact of your world. The city of London, with its 1 million inhabitants, has no modern sanitation system. And so, everything, absolutely everything, ends up in the river. You row through a body of water that is a thick, brown, and soupy mixture of human waste from 1,000 overflowing cesspits, of industrial runoff from the city's many tanneries and slaughterhouses, of the general, everyday garbage that is simply swept from the streets and into the nearest drain, the smell of your workplace, especially at low tide on a hot summer's day, is a thing of legend, a complex and overpowering perfume of decay, of industry, and of human filth. You advise your passengers, the finely dressed ladies and gentlemen who you ferry from Westminster to the city, to not trail their delicate hands in the water, unless they are particularly interested in catching a new and exciting disease. Your day is a constant hustle for fares. You are part of the great, noisy, and fiercely competitive guild of watermen. You stand at the public stairs, the stone steps that lead down to the river, and you shout for customers, your voice joining the chorus of hundreds of your fellow watermen, all of you insulting each other's boats and praising your own speed and skill. Oars, oars. Westward ho, it is a life of constant, noisy competition, and it is a life of danger. The physical dangers are obvious. The river is a crowded and chaotic highway. The tides are strong. A small, light wherry like your own can be easily swamped by the wake of a large, carelessly handled barge. To be thrown into the water is a constant risk. But the true danger is the water itself. To fall into the Thames is not just to risk drowning. It is to risk a more certain and more miserable death from disease. From the sad experience of your own friends and colleagues. That to swallow a mouthful of that fowl. Brown water is to invite the river fever, a sickness of the guts that often leads to a slow and agonizing death. You are a sailor who lives in a state of profound and constant terror of the very water you make your living on. You see the other, even more desperate. Inhabitants of your riverine world, at low tide. You see the toshers, the sewer hunters, wading through the thick, black mud of the riverbanks. Their trousers rolled up to their thighs. They are scavenging for anything of value that might have been washed down through the city's drains, lost coins. Pieces of scrap metal, old iron. They are the poorest of the poor. The men who are willing to risk their lives in the city's filth for the sake of a few pennies. Your own life is a precarious one. You are a working man, and your health is your only asset. A single unlucky accident, a moment of sickness, could mean the end of your livelihood. As you row, you are a witness to the great, churning, and often brutal engine of your city's prosperity. The river is the source of its wealth. It is this great, filthy, but incredibly efficient highway that allows the goods of the empire to flow into the city, and the products of the city to be shipped out to the world. Future historians will call this the beginning of the Great Divergence. The moment when your small, wet island nation began its explosive rise to global economic dominance. They will debate its causes, your access to coal, your political stability, your colonial empire, but you, the man who rose upon its central artery, know that the river itself, this great, convenient, and all-forgiving sewer and highway, is the true secret to London's success. But you also see the signs of change. The hints that your own watery world is a dying one. You look at the few, ancient, and overburdened bridges that span the river, like the Great London Bridge, with its houses and its shops, and you see new ones being built. The magnificent new Westminster Bridge has just been completed, a marvel of stone and of engineering, and with a waterman's sense of weary resignation, that every new bridge is another nail in the coffin of your trade. Every bridge is a rival that works for free. That does not get tired. That does not complain about the rain. One afternoon, you are ferrying a wealthy gentleman across the river. He is a man of fashion. His clothes are of the finest silk. His wig is perfectly powdered. And he is complaining, as they all do, about the smell of the river. "It is a disgrace," he says, holding a perfumed handkerchief to his nose, "that the greatest city in the world should have a river that smells like a common sewer." You want to tell him that it smells like a sewer because it is a sewer. You want to tell him that the filth from his own grand house, just a few hundred yards from the riverbank, is at this very moment flowing from a drain and into the water you are rowing him across. But you do not. You are a waterman, and your job is not to speak the truth to your betters. Your job is to row, and to be grateful for the tip. Your day ends as the sun is setting. Its last. Weak rays turning the surface of the fowl. Brown water into a sheet of shimmering, deceptive gold. You pull your wherry up onto the muddy shore. You are tired, your back and arms aching from a day of rowing against the tide. You are soaked with the river's spray, and you smell faintly of its foul perfume. You look at the great, beautiful, and terrible river. It is your master, it is your livelihood, it is your life. And you know that it is a thing of immense and dangerous power. It is a thing to be respected, to be feared, and if you are strong and you are careful, and you are very, very lucky, to be survived, you leave the crowded, urban, and man-made river of 18th century London, a world where the water's danger was in its profound and concentrated filth. Your journey now takes you across an ocean, to a new world, and to a new, and in its own way, more primal. Relationship with water. You are no longer a city dweller, a man who lives by the rhythms of the tide. You are a man who is trying to build a new river. In a land where the water itself is an enemy, the year is 1820. You are in the wild, untamed, and swampy wilderness of upstate New York. You are not a waterman. You are a canal digger, an immigrant, likely from Ireland, who has come to America, the land of opportunity, to escape the poverty of your homeland. And the great opportunity that this new nation has offered you is a shovel, a pickaxe, and $1 a day to dig a great ditch through a forest. You are a laborer on the most ambitious engineering project of your age, the Erie Canal. It is a project of breathtaking scale and of profound national importance. You are helping to carve a man-made river, a great waterway that will stretch for over 300 miles, connecting the Great Lakes to the Hudson River, and from there, to the Atlantic Ocean. It is a project that will turn New York City into the commercial capital of the world. It is a great engine of progress, and you are its fuel. Your world is a temporary, mobile, and profoundly miserable shantytown. You live in a crude hut, built of rough-cut timber and mud, in a great sprawling work camp that moves mile by miserable mile. With the progress of the canal, you are surrounded by thousands of other men like yourself. Poor immigrants, the disposable, manual labor that is carving a new nation out of the wilderness. The work is brutal. It is a war against the landscape itself. You spend your days, from sunrise to sunset, in the ditch. You are often standing waist-deep in cold, stinking, muddy water. You dig with a shovel. You break the rocky soil with a pickaxe. You haul the earth away in a wheelbarrow. You are a human machine, a living excavator. Your body powered by a meager diet of salt pork, bread, and the daily ration of whiskey that the company provides. The whiskey is meant to dull the pain in your back, the cold in your bones, and the general misery of your existence. But the greatest enemy you face is not the backbreaking labor, or the dangerous work with blasting powder, or the occasional, brutal fistfight in the camp. The greatest enemy is the land itself, and the water that saturates it. You are digging your great ditch through a landscape of low-lying, swampy, and mosquito-infested forests, and in this water, in this swamp, lives a silent, invisible, and ever-present killer. The men call it canal fever. They call it the ague. Its proper name is malaria. You have seen it all around you. A man will be working beside you in the ditch, and he will suddenly be seized by a violent, uncontrollable shivering, a deep, bone-rattling chill that no summer heat can warm. This is the first stage. Then comes the second, a raging, burning fever that leaves the man delirious, his skin hot and dry to the touch, and finally, the fever breaks in a great, drenching sweat that soaks his clothes and his bedding. He is left weak, exhausted, but he is alive. He has survived the attack. But you know, and he knows, that the fever will be back in a few days or a week. The cycle will begin again. The chills, the fever, the sweats. Each time, it will leave him a little weaker, a little more wasted. This is the great, defining reality of your life as a canal digger. The work is hard, the pay is poor, but the fever is the true tyrant, you and your fellow workers, and the doctors of your time. Do not understand the true cause of this sickness. You do not know that it is caused by a tiny, single-celled parasite that is transmitted by the bite of the Anopheles mosquito. You do not know that the very act of digging your canal, the clearing of the forests, the creation of vast pools of stagnant, sunlit water is creating the perfect breeding ground for millions upon millions of these mosquitoes. You are, in essence, digging your own plague. Your understanding of the disease is based on the ancient and powerful theory of miasma. You believe that the fever is caused by a bad air, a malaria, A poisonous vapor that rises from the swamps and from the rotting vegetation that your digging has unearthed. The smell of the swamp, the thick, heavy, organic scent of decay, is to you the smell of the disease itself. The only effective medicine is the Peruvian bark, the bark of the cinchona tree, which contains a substance called quinine. But it is expensive, and it is in short supply. The canal company's doctors, the few that there are, usually treat you with the cheaper, more readily available, and entirely useless remedies of the day. They give you a dose of calomel, the mercury-based purge. Or, more often, they simply prescribe another large glass of whiskey, a cure that does nothing for the fever, but at least makes the patient feel a little better about his own impending misery. This is the great, tragic debate about the cost of progress that is playing out in your own body. The Erie Canal will be a triumph of American engineering. It will be a source of immense wealth and national pride. But was the immense human cost, the thousands of immigrant laborers like yourself, who will die from accidents and from the diseases bred by the construction itself, an acceptable price to pay you? Shivering in your damp hut, your teeth chattering with the chills of the ague. Do not feel like a pioneer of progress. You feel like a disposable part in a great and merciless machine. Your life becomes a grim calculation. You work until the fever takes you. Then you spend a few days in your miserable hut, racked with the chills and the sweats, until the attack passes. Then you get up, your body weaker than before, and you go back to work in the ditch, waiting for the next attack to come. You and your fellow Irishmen are now fighting a new kind of famine, a famine of health. You have come to America, the land of opportunity, and the great opportunity you have been given is to dig a ditch through a swamp for $1 a day, and to receive a complimentary and recurring case of malaria, case of 1 year. Your own bout with the fever is a particularly bad one. You are delirious for days. When you finally recover, you are too weak to return to the back-breaking work of the ditch. But you are a loyal and a hard worker, and your foreman takes pity on you. He gives you a new, less strenuous job. You are to become a water boy, tasked with carrying buckets of drinking water to the work gangs along the line. Your new job makes you an intimate observer of the very thing that is the source of all your misery, the water. You fetch it from the streams, from the pools, from the canal itself, and you know that it is a living thing, a soup of microscopic life, a carrier of the fever. You look at the great, calm, and finished sections of the canal. The water is a thing of beauty, a placid, man-made river, a great, shining ribbon of progress. But you know its secret. You know that it is a beauty that has been paid for with the lives and the health of thousands of men like you. You know that it's quiet. Still waters are a monument, not just to the triumph of engineering, but to the quiet, miserable, and enduring tragedy of the fever that was the true and terrible price of its creation. You have helped to build a great waterway that will make a nation rich, and your only share of that wealth is the permanent, recurring sickness that now lives in your own blood. You leave the wild, malarial swamps of the American frontier behind, a world where water was a source of a creeping, feverish sickness bred in the wilderness. Your journey now takes you forward in time, to the heart of the greatest, most advanced, and most powerful city in the world, and you are about to discover a new kind of waterborne terror, a danger born not of nature, but of civilization's own magnificent and unmanageable success. The year's 1858. You are a clerk in the city of London. You are not a laborer or a soldier. You are a man of the new middle class, a respectable professional. Your world is one of ink, of paper, of the quiet, ordered and sometimes tedious. Work of the British government. You work in a new and magnificent building on the banks of the River Thames, the newly rebuilt Houses of Parliament. Your London is a city at the absolute zenith of its power and confidence. It is the capital of a vast global empire, the center of the world's finance. the workshop of the Industrial Revolution. It is a city that believes, with a deep and unshakable certainty, in the idea of progress, but the city has a dark, foul, and liquid secret, and it flows directly past your office window. The River Thames. The river you know is not the quaint, semi-clean river that your ancestors, the watermen of the 18th century, once rode upon. A century of explosive, unregulated industrial growth and a population that has swelled to over 2 million people have transformed your river into a single, vast, and open sewer. The great invention of the flushing toilet, a symbol of modern domestic hygiene, has had the unintended consequence of turning the Thames into the city's toilet bowl. The waste of millions of people, along with the effluent from the city's factories, tanneries, and slaughterhouses, is discharged raw and untreated, directly into the river. The summer of 1858 is an unusually hot and dry one. The level of the river drops. Its current becomes sluggish, and the years, the decades, the centuries of accumulated filth begin to bake and to fester in the unrelenting summer sun, and the smell begins. At first, it is just the usual, unpleasant, low-tide smell of the river, but as the heat wave continues, it grows. It becomes a presence, a physical, tangible, and malevolent force in the city. It is a smell unlike any other, a complex and overpowering bouquet of pure, concentrated, and epic-scale putrefaction. The newspapers give it a name. They call it the Great Stink. The smell is not just an inconvenience. It is a source of profound, city-wide terror. You, like every other educated person of your time, are a firm believer in the miasma theory of disease. You believe that diseases like cholera, which have ravaged your city in recent decades, are carried in the air in these foul, pestilential vapors, and the stench rising from the Thameses. To you and to all of London, the very smell of death. You believe you are breathing in the plague. The Great Stink brings the greatest city in the world to a grinding, gasping halt. The business of the law courts, which are located near the river, has to be abandoned because the judges, the lawyers, and the witnesses cannot bear the smell. The river traffic itself. The boatmen who make their living on the water are overcome by the fumes. But the most significant, and most historically important, effect of the Great Stink is on your own place of work, the Houses of Parliament. You are a clerk, and your office window, which usually provides a pleasant view of the river, has become a portal to a gaseous hell. The stench rolls off the water and seeps into the magnificent new Gothic building, into the committee rooms, into the great debating chambers, into the very halls of power. The government of the most powerful empire on earth is brought to its knees by a bad smell. The scene inside Parliament is one of almost comical, if terrified, chaos. You see the members of Parliament, the great statesmen of your age, trying to conduct the business of the empire while holding perfumed handkerchiefs to their faces. The great curtains of the building are soaked in a solution of chloride of lime, a desperate and entirely useless attempt to block out the invading stench. The new strategy is to combat the apocalypse of smell by making the whole building smell like a giant. Fancy lavatory. It does not work. The great debate in Parliament is no longer about a new bill or a colonial war. It is about whether they should flee the city entirely, whether they should move the entire government to Oxford or St. Albans. It is in this moment of crisis, with the government literally being driven from its own seat of power by the smell of its own waste, that a man and an idea finally have their moment. The man is a brilliant and determined engineer named Joseph Bazalgette, and his idea is a great revolutionary and fantastically expensive one to build a modern sewer system. The idea has been debated for years, but has always been put off due to the immense cost. But now, with the Great Stink concentrating the minds of the politicians in a way that no amount of scientific argument ever could, the time for debate is over. A bill is rushed through Parliament in a matter of 18 frantic, foul-smelling days, Bazalgette is given the funds and the authority to begin his magnum opus, the construction of a great network of intercepting sewers that will capture the city's waste before it reaches the Thames and carry it far to the east. To be discharged into the sea on the outgoing tide, this is the great historical debate that you are a witness to. What is the true engine of great, progressive, public health reform? Is it the slow, patient work of scientists and social reformers? Is it a sense of humanitarian concern for the poor who suffer the most from unsanitary conditions? Or is it, as you are seeing with your own eyes, the simple, powerful, and profound self-interest of the ruling class, who will only finally agree to a great and expensive reform when the problem becomes so disgusting, so offensive, that it literally makes it impossible for them to sit in their own offices and conduct their business? You spend the weeks of the Great Stink in a state of constant, low-level misery and fear. You try to work, your own handkerchief held to your nose. You drink more brandy at lunchtime than is probably good for you. In a futile attempt to dull your senses, the city outside is a strange and quiet place. The great, confident, bustling energy of London is gone, replaced by a kind of sullen, head-bowed endurance. The river, the great highway of the empire, has become the city's greatest enemy. It has managed to do what no foreign army, not even the great Napoleon, had ever managed to do. It has defeated the British government, finally, with the passing of the sewer bill and the coming of the autumn rains, which raise the level of the river and begin to flush its filth out to sea. The Great Stink begins to subside. The city, slowly, cautiously, begins to breathe again. You stand at your office window, and you look out at the great, brown, and still deeply unpleasant River Thames. But you look at it with a new sense of hope. The Great Stink has been a terrible, miserable, and disgusting ordeal, but it has also been a catalyst. It has been a crisis so profound that it has forced a great and necessary revolution. You have witnessed the moment when a modern city finally, after centuries of neglect, decided that it could no longer live on top of its own filth. The great, invisible, and waterborne danger that has haunted London for 1,000 years is about to be tamed, captured in a great, new, subterranean world of brick and of iron. The work of Joseph Bazalgette, the work that will save more lives than all the doctors of your age, is about to begin. You leave the crowded, stinking, and ultimately transformed city of 19th century London behind. You have witnessed a world nearly brought to a halt by the sheer, overwhelming filth of its own water, and the revolution in engineering that was born from that great disgust. Your journey now takes you forward in time, across another ocean, to a new continent, and to a new, and even more terrible, kind of water-related danger. A danger born not of its presence, but of its profound, absolute, and soul-destroying absence. The year is 1934. You are not a bureaucrat in a great city. You are a farmer on the high, flat, and windswept plains of the Oklahoma Panhandle. Your world is not a world of rivers and of sewers. It is a world of sky, a vast, empty, and unforgiving sky that has, for the past several years, refused to weep. You are a child of the homesteaders, the pioneers who came to this land a generation ago, drawn by the promise of fertile soil and a new life. They were told that the rain follows the plow. They were told that by breaking the ancient sod of the prairie, by cultivating the land, they would make the rains come. It was a beautiful, optimistic, and catastrophically wrong idea for a time. During a period of unusual wetness, the theory seemed to work. Your father and his neighbors plowed up millions of acres of the native buffalo grass, the thick, hardy grass whose deep roots had held the soil of the Great Plains in place for 10,000 years. And they planted wheat. The land gave them a few years of bountiful harvest, and they believed they had conquered the wilderness. But now, the rains have stopped, and you are living in the heart of a great, man-made ecological disaster. You are living in the Dust Bowl. Your world is a world of dust. It is a fine, reddish-brown powder that coats every surface of your small, wooden farmhouse. It is in your food, a constant, gritty presence in your mouth. It is in the water you draw from your nearly dry well. It is in your lungs, a persistent, rasping cough that all of your family now shares. And then there are the storms, the black blizzards. You see one coming from miles away. It is not a cloud of rain. It is a great, rolling, boiling wall of black dust that towers 1,000 feet into the sky, swallowing the horizon, blotting out the sun in the middle of the day. The coming of the storm is a signal for a frantic, practiced routine. Your mother rushes to stuff wet rags into the cracks of the window frames and under the doors. You and your father herd the few skeletal cattle you have left into the relative shelter of the barn, and then you all retreat into the house, into a single, small room, and you wait. The storm hits your small farmhouse with the force of a physical blow. The wind screams, a high, mournful, and relentless sound. The world outside is plunged into a dark, suffocating twilight, and the dust begins to seep in. It comes through the window frames, through the floorboards, through the very walls themselves. A fine, unstoppable, and choking powder that fills the air until you can barely breathe. You tie a wet handkerchief over your mouth and nose, and you huddle together in the darkness, listening to the sound of your own world blowing away. The storm can last for hours, or for days. When it is over, you emerge into a changed landscape. Great. Sweeping dunes of dust, like the dunes of a desert, have buried your fences, have piled up against the walls of your barn. The world is a softer, more rounded, and more desolate place. And you know that another few inches of your precious topsoil, the very earth that was supposed to be your family's future, has been stripped from your land and has been carried away, sometimes for 1,000 miles, on the wind. This is the great central debate of your time. Is this a natural disaster, a once-in-a-millennium drought, an act of God that no one could have foreseen or prevented? Or is it a man-made catastrophe, a direct, predictable, and tragic consequence of the unsustainable farming practices? Of the great plow-up that destroyed the native ecosystem and left the soil vulnerable to the inevitable cycle of drought. As you look out at your fields, which are no longer fields of wheat but are now just barren, windswept hardpan, know the answer. The drought was an act of God, but the Dust Bowl was an act of man. Your life becomes a daily, losing battle against the dust and the drought. You try desperate folk remedies to make it rain. You hear stories of men who have killed snakes and hung them belly up on a fence. An old superstition that is supposed to bring rain. It does not work. The health of your family begins to fail. The constant exposure to the fine, silica-laden dust is causing a new and deadly disease that the local doctors are calling dust pneumonia. Your younger sister dies of it, her small lungs so filled with the dirt that she simply could not breathe anymore. Finally, the economic reality of the disaster delivers the final blow. The wheat has failed for 3 years in a row. You have no crop to sell. You have no money to pay your loan to the bank. And so, the man from the bank arrives. He is not a cruel man. He is just a man doing his job. He serves your father with the foreclosure papers. The farm, the land that your family has poured its sweat and its life into, is no longer yours. You are evicted. You have been defeated not by an army, not by a plague, but by a lack of water. You are now a part of a great and tragic American exodus. You are Okies, a name that is spoken with a mixture of pity and of contempt. You and your family pile your few remaining possessions, your mattresses, your cooking pots, a few chairs onto your old, sputtering Ford truck, a machine held together by hope and by baling wire, and you join the great, slow-moving river of the dispossessed, the thousands of other families just like yours, on the great highway of the West, the Route 66. Your destination is a mythical, promised land. A place of green fields, of orange groves, of jobs. A place where it is said that it always rains. California. The journey is an ordeal, but it is your last, best hope. You finally arrive in the great, fertile valleys of California, and you discover that you have only traded one kind of misery for another. The Promised Land is not a paradise. You are not welcomed as a fellow American. You are a refugee, a migrant, an object of suspicion and of scorn. You are a dumb Okie, a part of a great, desperate, and cheap labor pool to be exploited by the great. Corporate farms that own this new land. You live in a squalid migrant camp, a shanty town of tents and of shacks, and you work, when you can find it, for pitiful wages. Picking fruit in the hot sun, one evening, you're standing at the edge of the great, irrigated field where you have been working. You look at the vast, green, and orderly rows of crops, stretching as far as the eye can see, and you see the water. It is flowing in a great, man-made irrigation ditch, a concrete-lined river, bringing the life-giving water from a distant mountain reservoir to this thirsty land. You look at this beautiful, controlled, and life-sustaining water, and you think of your own dry, dusty, and dead farm back in Oklahoma, and you understand the final, most brutal, and most modern lesson about the terrifying danger of water. You have fled a world where there was no water, and you have arrived in a world where the water is owned, is controlled, is hoarded by powerful men. The problem is not the absence of water. The problem is who gets to decide where it flows. In the old world, the danger of water was a thing of nature, of gods. In this new world, you realize, the danger of water is a thing of men, of money, and of power. And you are still, and will always be, on the wrong side of the ditch. You have reached the end of your long and often miserable journey through the history of humanity's dangerous relationship with water. You have been a farmer, praying to the gods of a great river. You have been a sewer worker, navigating a man-made river of filth. You have been a sailor, fighting for your life on a stormy sea, and another sailor, dying of thirst on a calm one. You have been a waterman on a polluted urban highway, a canal digger in a malarial swamp, a citizen choked by the stench of your own city's waste, and a farmer whose world was turned to dust by the absence of rain. And now, you are back. You are here, in your own time, in your own quiet and comfortable room, in a world that has been profoundly, miraculously, and invisibly shaped by the lessons of all those other lives. Take a moment, think about the simple, almost magical act of getting a glass of water. You feel a little thirsty, so you get up, you walk a few steps, on a clean, dry floor, to a kitchen or a bathroom. You reach out your hand, and you turn a small, metal handle, and from a metal spout, a stream of clean, clear, cool, and safe water pours out, as if from a magic spring. You fill a glass, you drink it, and you do not get sick. You do not die. This act, this simple, everyday miracle, is the final destination of our story tonight. Because in that single, effortless gesture, you are the beneficiary of 3,000 years of hard-won, often brutal, human history. When you turn on that tap, you are activating a system of such immense complexity and historical weight that it is almost impossible to comprehend. You are connected to a great, invisible empire of pipes, of reservoirs, of aqueducts, of filtration plants, and of scientific knowledge. You think of yourself as the Egyptian farmer, whose entire life was a gamble on the mood of the Nile. Your water comes not from a fickle river god, but from a great distant reservoir, held back by a dam of concrete and steel, a monument of engineering that would have made the pharaohs weep with envy. You think of yourself as the Roman sewer worker, wading through the raw filth of a million people. The water you have just used, when it goes down your drain, does not flow into the nearest river. It travels through a vast subterranean labyrinth of pipes. A modern cloaca maxima, far more complex than the Romans ever dreamed, to a great treatment plant where its poisons are cleansed before it is returned to the environment. The great, stinking, and world-changing lesson of the London of 1858 has been learned. You think of yourself as the sailor, dying of thirst in the doldrums. His drinking water a foul, slimy, and putrid liquid. The water that comes from your tap has been filtered through sand and charcoal. It has been treated with chemicals, with chlorine, a simple and powerful substance that has done more to eliminate waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid than all the doctors of the 19th century combined. You think of the Dutch farmer, standing on his dike in the teeth of a gale. Your own town is likely protected by a complex system of flood barriers, of storm drains, of levees, all of it designed by engineers who have learned the hard lessons of 1,000 years of fighting the sea. You think of the Irish canal digger, shivering with the malarial fever he caught from the mosquitoes, breeding in the swampy water of his worksite. You live in a world that has drained its swamps, that understands the life cycle of a mosquito, a world that has declared war on the very diseases that your ancestors saw as an unavoidable part of life. And you think of the Oklahoma farmer, watching his world turn to dust and blow away. You live in a world of immense and complex irrigation systems, a world that can, for a time at least, make the deserts bloom, a world that has tried, with all of its engineering might, to defy the drought. This is the great debate that defines your relationship with water in the modern age. You have used your science and your engineering to build a great and complex shield against the ancient dangers of water. But is that shield a permanent one? You hear the new stories, the new anxieties of your own time. You hear of aging infrastructure, of lead pipes, of new chemical pollutants. You hear of megadroughts, of rising sea levels, of the changing climate. You have won a great many battles against the dangers of water, but you know that the war is never truly over, for thousands of years. Humanity's relationship with water was one of direct, physical, and often terrifying struggle. But for you, in your quiet, comfortable home, the struggle has been rendered almost entirely invisible. The work is now done by great, silent machines, by distant, unseen engineers, by a vast and complex bureaucracy. The miracle of your clean glass of water has been made possible by a history of suffering, of labor, of ingenuity, and of a slow, painful, and often bloody accumulation of knowledge. So the next time you turn on the tap, take a moment. Think of the Egyptian farmer, praying for the flood. Think of the Roman sewer worker, in the darkness beneath your feet. Think of the Viking sailor, bailing for his life in a storm. Think of all the ghosts, all the forgotten lives that are contained in that simple, clear, and life-giving stream. The greatest and most terrifying dangers of water for you have been tamed. And that is the most boring, the most profound, and the most wonderful piece of history of all, the long story of water, with its floods and its droughts, its storms and its sicknesses, is now at its end. The journey is over. Let the memory of the ancient rivers, the foul canals, and the terrifying empty oceans all fade away, leaving only the quiet, gentle and peaceful sound of your own calm. In your own safe and comfortable space, you are at peace. The world outside is still. The only current is the slow, easy, and gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Let that rhythm be your guide now, pulling you away from the shores of the waking world, out into the deep and calm and silent waters of sleep. Feel your body grow heavy, your muscles releasing their hold on the day. Feel your mind grow quiet, the stories and the thoughts of the past dissolving like salt in the endless ocean of the night. The darkness behind your eyelids is a warm and welcoming sea, a place of profound and easy rest, where there are no storms, no dangers, only a deep and healing stillness. You are floating now, weightless and secure. On a calm and silent tide, let it carry you. There is nothing to do, nothing to fear. There is only the gentle, inevitable, and welcome surrender to a deep and dreamless sleep.